Begin transmission. Hello, everybody. It is I, Chris, aka Starrapter, joined by the usual crew. Tonight we have Milton returning, as well as Ben, to talk all about our week in Star Wars, as well as some Star Wars music. We have more of a faster paced episode this week because, well, we made up for last week with having like a almost 3 hour podcast. So we're going to have more of like an hour ish podcast this week. Scheduling things on my end kind of got us started late if you're watching live. But how's it going, Milton? I wanna check in with you. I wanna check in with your overall thoughts on Obi-Wan. Being we didn't get your final analysis of the series last week, and if you'll give us like a score out of 10, like we usually do per episode. You can start us off, man. How you been and everything like that.
I'm good, man. I'm good. Last week I couldn't be on the podcast. However, I did watch a little bit. It was a long show, so I do appreciate it. And let's say your guest was awesome last week. Um, but no, my thoughts on the show overall with Obi-Wan, I very much liked the show. It was one of my favorite shows anticipated. I made that very clear. I thought the show was fairly consistent for what it was. Could have been better in certain areas. Yes, of course. But it wasn't trash. I'll tell you that right now. This is probably one of the better Disney Plus shows that's been made, whether it's Marvel, Star Wars, whatever. So I thought Obi-Wan's character was true to light. I mean, that was the show. It was called Obi-Wan. So if he was consistent, that's all that mattered to me. And yes, seeing Vader was dope. Seeing Hayden was off the chain. I liked the Reva or Reva character. Yes, there were some low points with the show, but they weren't bad where it took me out of the show. It's very much rewatchable. If I had to get this a score out of 10, I say 8.75. Just because there were some hiccups. There was an episode that I didn't like, but there were some hiccups with some of the writing, some of the direction that we talked about. The music wasn't the greatest, however, it wasn't garbage. But like I said, I think it deserves an 8.75, which is a really good score. If they want to bring it back for season two, I'm all about it. Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen did no wrong when it comes to being in this show. They are great actors, and I love how they portray the characters.
Yeah, so you pretty much came along with what I acknowledged the show to be as last week. I think I had the lowest score, and I believe I still actually have the lowest score. Ben, what did I get? Did I give it like a 7? I think I gave it a 7.
I
I
think you
said,
said 7 or 7.5, and I said an 8.5.
yeah. And then Matthew from Island Cannon, I
Mm,
believe, gave it like a 9 or something like that.
mm.
Yep.
Well,
Um,
and honestly, with those four scores, I mean, that probably comes out to about an 8.2, 8.25, 8.
Yep.
So that's not bad.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I think that's like a fair range. I would say just like the general gist, you get on social media, you throw out some of the high end scores, like the 10 out of 10s, and you throw out some of the like 0 out of 10s. And I think the happy medium is about, like you said, Milt, like an 8.2 type range for the show, like just overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's crazy how fast that Obi-Wan came out and how it's already finished, and it helped because I was at Celebration, so like half the series was over with by the time I came back. So that was cool. But on the horizon, we got our next big thing. It's not directly Star Wars, but we did get the release trailer and the poster for Light and Magic, an upcoming 6 episode docuseries. Man, oh man, I feel like Disney
Mm.
just loves those 6 episode series, whether it be Ms. Marvel or any of the shows relating to Marvel, basically, and Star Wars. Um, and that'll be its own conversation for another day because I feel like that's not enough episodes for most of these things. I feel like a
Right.
lot of these things get rushed. But anyway, we're getting this new docu series. Did either of you watch the trailer? I think Ben, you watched it because you sent me the link.
Yeah, I think I think it should be pretty interesting. I'm not sure if you had caught it, but Lawrence Kasdan's directing the whole thing, so that's really cool. Um, and yeah, I think it'll just be a really good, another one of these really good behind the scenes type featurettes that we are getting. And of course, like you said, Disney Plus is like calling card is 6 episodes, and they're sticking to it on this one. So yeah, I think it should be pretty interesting, and it'll give I would say, like, of course, all of us, hardcore fans, like, know about all of this, but it'll be nice seeing the details that we don't know, and it'll also be good for the people, the more say general audience that are like, surfing Disney Plus, and they're like, oh, let me find something to watch. Oh, let's see what this is, and dive into it, and oh, this is the company that's behind all these movies and projects and things, and blah 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 blah. So like, I think that's where it'll like be impacting. It'll give us hardcore fans more details, as well as pulling in people that may be more like just surfing Disney.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys watched the other documentaries that don't have anything to do with Star Wars. One of the first things I ever watched on Disney Plus was like the 6th episode, like at least an hour in length each episode, of just like Walt Disney and like his start from like what he did until he created all the parks. And there was another one with like Pixar and stuff like that. Like I feel like the trailer I seen for this definitely sounds like it's going to be up there with like that first season of the Gallery Mandalorian, which I also really enjoyed that one a lot, where it was like 6 or 7 or maybe even 8 episodes. I think that original one was. It really dives in. I like how the trailer opens up with this, with George Lucas just talking about industrial light and magic. And I mean, that's where it spawned out. He's the guy that paid the bill. He needed that studio because he literally says in the trailer, there was no other effects house to even hire.
Right.
I had to create my thing from the ground up. Yeah, so what do you think about that, Milton? Are you going to be checking this one out? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching this. You already know, because y'all know how I feel about the behind the scenes. And what's nice is we've gotten a lot of the original crew doing the storytelling. All these guys that were back in the 70s and 80s, and even with the prequels, I think it was Doug Chang was in this, John Knoll, that I forgot the one guy's name, but he's got
Dennis
like that
Mirren?
mullet back in the day. Yeah, Dennis Mirren.
Phil Tippett?
Yeah, like all those guys. Yeah, I love listening to them talk because they are part of that original crew with Ralph McQuarrie back in the day. So knowing that they worked with him with all his artwork and they brought that to life, I'm all about it. So I'm going to watch this. And I literally thought about this the other day when I was eating lunch at my job. I'm thinking, like, we're going to have to break this down in the podcast. We're going to have to break down each episode, because this is what I think as hardcore Star Wars fans like to talk about, is like, look at the behind the scenes stuff when it comes to the original trilogy and the prequels. Those things still hold up today, because there's always tidbits that you realize you don't know about. You're like, wait a minute, I didn't know they did this, or I didn't know that. What was the meaning of that? I felt we're not really getting enough of that with the newer films. That's why it's nice to go back and revisit the old stuff to say, okay, how does it line up? How do these creators really tell these stories? And literally, I just had a conversation with one of my good friends, James, about this, because he didn't realize that Pixar was a George Lucas creation. Yep. He didn't realize that ILM was a George Lucas creation. I'm like, dude, the reason why we have Marvel, the reason why we have DC and all the special effects, the reason why we have Jurassic Park is because of ILM and George Lucas. So, again, this documentary, for any fan of movie making, should watch it.
Oh yeah, and the fact that Lawrence Kasdan himself, because I was there during the panel at Star Wars Celebration when they were talking about this very soon. They showed us parts of the episodes, and it looks really well made. But it's cool to have a guy that was there. It's not just like some guy from ABC News or whatever news network that's like looking in from the outside. Like Lawrence Kasdan was there, like with these people, because he wrote The Empire Strikes Back, right? So he was in the midst of all the chaos. Yeah. Of what was happening. So he has that firsthand experience, and he's got those personal relationships with the people that I mentioned, that you mentioned, that is able to kind of draw probably more information out, because he's got more rapport with these people to begin with. So I think, like you said, Milton, anybody that's a fan of movie making is probably going to want to check this out regardless, because you said of all those other big fandoms, from Jurassic Park to E.T. to even probably like Indiana Jones, like things
Indiana
probably
Jones
like you wouldn't even expect, because
we don't get Lord of the Rings the way Peter Jackson made that film, and obviously the creator of that story, they put that onto words. We don't get that on the big screen without ILM.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, literally, I was just going through their page the other day. The films that they do each year is crazy. I don't know how they keep up with the work. Where they're hit. Marvel uses them all the time. J.J. Abrams companies using them all the time. Like every major film company, or even private ones, or let's go to we need a special effect done for this particular thing. ILM is going to come through with that. Like that's a lot of work and responsibility. I mean, I just watched the original or episode 1 documentary, even George Lucas said it back in 1997. He's like, if we can make Jar Jar work, if we can make this, CGI stuff work, then everyone else is going to come to us to want to do their movies. Like, we have to
Yep.
make this work for episode 1 so we can get other people to come to us. Like, he foresaw this back, 23 years ago, 24 years ago. So it's like, it's crazy.
Oh yeah, it's definitely crazy, and there were so many big breakthrough moments, like like you mentioned with Jar Jar, and then another one. I'm sure they'll get into it in the documentary, like the whole the breakthrough for Jurassic Park, like the T-Rex working and the dinosaurs working, like that sort of stuff revolutionized movie making. I mean, without that sort of stuff, like we wouldn't be getting all the different things we've had. And you mentioned, Milton, how many movies they've done. I believe it's I think I saw the number. It was like over 350 total movies they've been affiliated with, which is insane. Like considering like how that's so many different movies.
And we're not even looking at the TV component of it too, because I'm sure they've probably done some TV work.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So the cool thing about
we'll definitely get into it when it comes out.
Yeah, the cool thing about this is I looked up, the 6 weeks from July 27th. The date it comes out, it's going to bring us right into Andor. So guess what, guys? We're going to be talking new Disney Plus content from my birthday onward until the foreseeable future because,
I'm about to say, Chris,
Bad Batch.
my birthday too, because, my birthday is the 29th, which is that Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Which I won't be, because I'll be coming back from Florida that day while you're talking about, the first episode.
That's all right. We'll do a little recap like we did with your Obi-Wan reaction, just talking about right off the top about how you feel. It's swinging into the normal kind of routine here. If you guys are listening, we always go live around 9 o'clock, except in circumstances that I can't control, like today. Had to do a CPR class after the fact of my job, and it ran a little longer for those of you that needed to know that information, whatever. But usually around 9 o'clock Eastern. But then we're also, for those of you that want to listen to us, you can download us. The new episodes go up every Monday morning for your commute to work on everybody's favorite day of the week, Monday. So with that being said and out of the way, I don't have anything in particular Star Wars related that happened to me this week, oddly enough. But what about you guys?
I'll go first on this one. So last week I got another tattoo. And I texted you guys about this, but literally my tattoo artist and I talked about Star Wars for 3 hours while he was doing my tattoo. Because originally he started talking about Lord of the Rings and how his kids started watching, or not Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. And I was like, oh yeah, I like Harry Potter too. And we were just talking about our favorite ones. And then he's like, hey, do you watch, you like Star Wars? And I'm like, yeah. And literally, he's like, what do you think about the sequels? And of course, that got me sparked. And then I said, I love the prequels and the original trilogies. And he's like, oh, so did I, dude. He's like 10 years older than me. He loved everything about the prequels, the original trilogy. Literally, they pulled out a box of comics. There's these 5 tattoo artists, guys.
Damn.
Pulled out a box of comics that had all the Anakin and Obi-Wan comics in it. He's like, oh, yeah. He's like, I got you sitting here in the back. And I'm like, looking at him like, what? I'm thinking of you guys the whole time, especially you, Chris, because you're probably going to lose your mind. And then we started talking about the shows, the books, the audio dramas. He loves Darth Plagueis. He loves Palpatine. Like, literally, he's like, I want to start a trivia game night, like, at the local bars in our town. And I was like, dude, I'll be down with that. Like, I gave him my phone number. I followed his Instagram page. Like, we became, like, best friends that day over Star Wars. So what was nice about that is that Star Wars can bring people together. And I love that. Again, I'm a huge nerd. I have no problem admitting that. I don't look like it, but I am a huge nerd and I love it. So, and if it's going to bring me closer to people and just enjoy their interactions, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, literally one of my clients today, he was like, I was telling him how many Star Wars shirts I have. And, we were working out and he's like, dude, you should just... Too bad you just can't wear a Star Wars shirt every day. You'd probably get so many clients. And I was just like, yeah, you're probably right. It's a way to break down the barriers. People are like, hey, it's cool to like work out. And like people have this stigma. It's like no, it's like people look at you. Oh, yeah, there's no way that guy's a nerd. But deep down, you're a huge nerd.
Oh God, yeah.
So it's like it'd be funny. It's like, hey, that guy's cool. I could probably like have a conversation with him because he's not just wearing a uniform, you know. It's like as long as I wear a name tag over the T-shirt, I'm good. And I was like, yeah, dude, I have enough T-shirts to last me like 2 months if I wear one a day. Like I have
Exactly. I mean,
so many.
it's amazing how this property can really just bring stuff out in people in a sense of like community. You know, and again, we don't have to agree on the films or the shows or whatever. That's fine. But there's something out there that we all like about Star Wars as a community where we can like, oh, I can sit down and have a conversation with this person, whether I've known you for years or I met you for one day off the street. Like I said, I met this guy twice, and literally our second time we've spoken about doing this tattoo design, we're talking about Star Wars the whole time while he's really inking up my arm the whole time. I'm thinking, that's amazing. So
Yeah.
I told him, I said my next tattoo will probably be a Star Wars tattoo.
It's funny because like, again, like with the industry I work in as a trainer, like it takes me a couple weeks to get to know some of these people that I work with. Some of them are quiet, some of them will tell you everything right off the bat, and it's always a cool moment. Like I had like I think a week or two ago when the one guy I trained mentioned he's watching Obi-Wan, and I just like was like, what? Like I was like, every time that happens, I'm like, dude, like I will talk your ear off about Star Wars for an hour easily.
Exactly.
I was like, I could easily just distract you to the point where you might have to tell me to stop talking and do more reps because I will sit there and talk to you about Star Wars for well over an hour. So it's always funny because like when that barrier breaks down, then I'm like, oh, we can communicate. Like I have like a whole new sense of who you are if you enjoy talking about Star Wars or any other fandoms. I asked like now we're like talking about The Boys every week and like, oh, what happened? You know, so it's a cool when these fandoms get to break down that social construct of, you know, who we are and stuff.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes. Without further ado, Ben, do you have anything you want to talk about with your week in Star Wars? Otherwise, we're gonna go into the big main topic of tonight.
All I had like really in terms of Star Wars this week, you know, I got thinking more just like concepts, for example. So like I was watching Batman Begins, and man, like when Ra's al Ghul and Batman are training up in like the mountains and stuff, that really got me like thinking more and more about like Kenobi season 2, because I was like, man, I could just see like a Force Ghost Qui-Gon like coaching Obi-Wan out in the desert, like, you know, just telling him different things and whatnot, because like Liam Neeson like did such an amazing job as Ra's al Ghul, and it's like I could easily see him doing like a Jedi version of that with Obi-Wan out in the desert on Tatooine in like season 2 of Kenobi if they do that, you know. So it was just like more thinking along the lines of like potentially what if like if we do get a season 2, like that would be an amazing sequence to see, you know, Liam Neeson just his Force Ghost kind of like training Obi-Wan, like directing him like use their Force this way or that way or whatever, you know, like that sort of deal. So yeah, just more of like concept than anything like eventful happening in Star Wars for me.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was like training him. I don't see there's much of a point in training him at this point because I mean, from a physical perspective, I mean.
No, I mean as in like the immortal stuff. Like I don't know, have Obi-Wan using the Force some way or another, and Qui-Gon being like, you know, like, Qui-Gon being like,
kind of
no,
like how Yoda, like Yoda was speaking to the Guardians of the Wills or whatever they were.
I see.
In the lost episodes.
Yeah. That's more what I was thinking along the lines of like just the spiritual side of the Force, like, you know, Obi-Wan's not reaching out good enough or whatever, you know, just that sort of thing, like not the physical side, but more just like that sort of thing. And I feel like that'd be just like a cool sequence to see of just Liam Neeson just kind of coaching him up on how to, you know, become like Force immortal, or if I guess a Force Ghost.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just ideas.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential. Whether or not it continues for season 2 or stays where it is, I'm fine. Yep. I'm fine either way. I have something it's kind of breaking news. I'm scrolling through things, and for all clarity, I did not prepare show notes for this week's episode, guys. But it looks like Taika Waititi's film, according to Bespin Bulletin, is filming early next year.
Do we even know what it's going to be on?
I don't know, but Bespin Bulletin is let's see, according to This is actually even a more, not saying the Bestman Bulletin is not credible, but their source is actually THR, the Hollywood Reporter. So it's, this pretty much says it's in lock for early 2023. Last we left off, like he sounded like he doesn't even know if his script was going to go through. Like I've seen interviews where he's like, yeah, if they accept it, whatever. It's like the way he responded to one reporter was like, people were running with the article of saying maybe his movie doesn't even happen, but according to this, early 2023. So if it's filming in early 2023, we're not getting this thing until 2024.
Exactly. And honestly, we don't even know what the movie's going to be about or what the premise could be. So I don't even know.
Yeah,
the only thing that's the big thing.
Yeah, I would hope by Celebration next year, then we have a full panel, so at least announcing the cast, at least
Right.
telling us what the movie's about, because that's a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. For me, I still am banking on. I think it's gonna be 25 because 24 is Avatar, but
yeah,
it's just that's the thing. Just because those movies, they take so long to film, and potential, it says early next year. Like early next year for them could be April. So like that's the only thing with that, and it comes down also to like you said, Milton, like what's it even about? What time period is it set in, et cetera, et cetera. Like there's so many questions about that movie, and I really don't think unless we get like leaks and stuff, or just Tyga or whoever talking about it, I really don't think we're going to hear anything about it until Celebration next year.
Well,
like
here's the
actual details.
Here's the thing. I'm also looking at this article, and it's both claimed. I mean, we have two big conventions coming up in a couple weeks. We have San Diego Comic-Con. I think it might be shown off or something there because they've already announced that Marvel's going to have a panel. They already announced that DC, which is Black Adam's going to have a panel. So it's like I'd be very surprised with those heavy hitters showing up that Lucasfilm would show up empty-handed. And if they did, then they also have D23 that's coming out in the beginning of September, like the actual D23, not like the one they had last year. So if we go without any word of this in the next, by the end of summer, I'll be very surprised. I think at least one of those conventions they will at least announce what the heck the thing is going to be called, because if his script is that far along, I'm sure he's on like several drafts where they can at least like give us a blurb of his movie's at least going to take 4,000 years in the past. Like give us just a quick like one sentence declaration of what it is, and that'll be enough to satisfy me. And then come Celebration, they could have like concept art and maybe actually announce the cast, because if they're filming by then, obviously they would have to have the cast, and they so we shall see. But it's just a nice update. Because other than that, everything's been kind of on the quiet for the last couple weeks for anything Star Wars. We did get an image released for Andor this week. I think that was from Empire or something. I don't know if you know the exact source where that came from, Ben. But it was very interesting. Yeah.
No, I'm not sure the exact source, but continue.
I believe, I don't have the article in front of me, but I believe they're almost like Clone Wars arcs. From what it sounds like,
oh yes,
the 12 episodes are broken into like 4 parts, like of 3-episode arcs. I know that's for year 2 or season 2. I don't know if that's because season 2, for instance, it'd be 1 year per each batch of 3 episodes leading up into the same year as Rogue One. I'm not sure how the first season was structured. I don't know if you can clarify on that at all, Ben, because I think you read that article.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the first season is year 1, and then it sounds like the second season is years 2, 3, and 4. So there'll be 3. It sounds like it could be 3 4-episode arcs, and then potentially, if there's another season, maybe like year 5 would be like the lead up into if they do a 3rd season or something. But the way I interpreted it was season 2 is years 2, 3, 4. And that's how they're going to play it out, which, as you mentioned, it's nice that they're doing that. And I put in our group chat, like, this could potentially change the way Disney Plus does things in general for storytelling, especially Star Wars, just because, think about it this way, guys. Like, say if they announce of course we want, like, the most possible content, blah, 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 blah. But what if they ever announce, like, hey, we're doing a 3-season Luke series between episodes 6 and 7, and then they're going to use that same structure. So, between 6 and 7, we have, whatever, like 25 years or however many years. So, they could easily break up, say, 3 seasons into like, season 1, say 10 episodes, and then, you have 3 and 4 episode arcs. So then, that can be like the first 2 or 3 years or 4 years. And then season 2 can be another 4 or 5 or even 8 years, whatever. And then, you can progress stories, you can condense the stories into arcs and still be progressing like the characters forward in time. So like you could cover potentially 20 years of Luke over a 3-episode or a 3-season arc. You could use that storytelling just to almost, of course we'd want like every season just to be like one full year or something for, maximum content. But if they don't do it that way, at least we would be getting more of the story progression of the characters we're enjoying and stuff. So I think there's a chance they could use that in future storytelling for Disney Plus. Heck, they might even, if we ever get anything with the Solo stuff, maybe Solo, they'll do that with him. Like, there's plenty of different opportunities for them to use that arc or that style in their storytelling.
Yeah, so pretty cool, exciting update there. Yep. There was one comic that came out this week, Halcyon Legacy issue number 4. You can check that out on my YouTube channel, which you're watching now. Go ahead and check that out. I'm going to throw this one over to Milton because you were the one that came up with the idea for our topic to discuss this week, and it's all about Star Wars music. So I don't know how you want to introduce this or how you want to go about starting it off, but I'll throw it over to you, man.
Yeah, so I thought about this, obviously, because, you wanted us to put it out there, but I used to listen to the Rebel Force Radio podcast with Jason and Jimmy and all those guys, and they used to have David W. Collins, who used to work for LucasArts, all that stuff. I think he still does work for Lucasfilm,
yes,
but he does like some music stuff, and he actually always did a segment called Star Wars Oxygen, where those particular episodes he'd break down like the music, and they call it Oxygen because he's like, music of Star Wars gave the films life. Like we need oxygen to live and function. Star Wars movies are space operas that need the music to tell us how to feel in those moments of storytelling and moments of character development and that type of thing. So I just always felt that because we rarely talked about music on this podcast, talk about the different scores, what we liked about them, what was our favorite scores, the impact of these composers. Most importantly, with John Williams, I believe he's retiring. I believe was it this year or next year?
After Indiana Jones.
After Indiana Jones, like he's a legacy. He'll never be forgotten. So I figured let's talk about some of our favorite music, whether it's soundtracks of Star Wars, our favorite individual tracks, the different composers that's been a part of it. So however you want to do this, we can start it whatever way you want to start it.
Yeah, we could just go through and just highlight maybe the tracks, that resonate with us the most, that elevate certain scenes the most in Star Wars. I think it's funny because the epitome of how Star Wars is affected by its music is all over YouTube. There was a video that was put out a couple of years ago with the Yavin ceremony without sound, and you watch that scene and just look at that emotion. There's like no emotion. It's just so lacking, right? You can hear the sound effects. And it's just very awkward. But then when you add that sound in, that sound, like, I know people that have weddings that come out to that track. Like, that was my ringtone for the longest time. So for me, like that song just is so heroic, and just it has a feeling, and that adds to everything Star Wars. It gives you that feeling of, terrible loss or terrible uplifting, and everything else in between, that adventure and just everything that John Williams did. He is the lifeblood of Star Wars. It's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty sick. And that will, I guess that's from New Hope. We'll start there, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll go chronological order, I guess. But a track from me when it comes to New Hope, it's probably I guess the Force track. I believe that's whenever, or maybe that's like the Luke
Yep.
theme. It was kind of like a little bit of both, but whenever he looks at the twin suns for the first time,
Yeah, I think that's called the Force theme.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Like you see that, and then like just seeing how that ties in, how that theme is obviously through entire Star Wars. But I love how John Williams and George Lucas uses that theme when it's appropriate, and they seem to always nail it every time. Whether it's the epic conclusion of the film, to say that, hey, this is a character's journey, or the character's moving forward here. Just whenever Luke looks at those twin suns, it's dope. Like I still get the goosebumps anytime I hear that particular track in that movie. Um, and I loved, like, in that particular movie, how it was very much 70s, and how like and how operatic it was, but also something new at that time. We weren't born in the 70s. However, you can definitely tell that particular soundtrack is very distinct from all the other eight to nine films that were made. So
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
for sure. When it comes to the Force theme, like that's one of the most iconic scores in the entire saga. Like it hits on every level. It works for virtually all the characters in the like the main Force using characters for the entire saga. So like, that's great in and of itself. And then, I feel like another aspect of New Hope, to go along with like the Yavin theme, the Force theme, like for me, I think one of the biggest things that really, can't even be understated is just John Williams hitting the actual opening theme for Star Wars: A New Hope, like it actually
Oh.
working. Because I feel like if you give, for like the opening crawl theme, like if you make it some, I don't know, some weird, you could only imagine, you know what I mean, like a 70s like weird wonky sounding theme, it totally just probably sets you in a totally different mood for the movie, for the audience at the time, and maybe Star Wars doesn't even hit. So like that's kind of like my thing from A New Hope. I feel like for me, like the big takeaway track is just the introduction of the actual Star Wars theme, because you play that theme anywhere in the entire world and someone knows what that's from.
right,
Oh yeah, one track, and I guess what we'll do is we can go through like one track from each movie in chronological
yeah,
order because I'm already
Yeah,
thinking
that
about that in the
works.
back of my mind. One last honorable mention I will put out there for A New Hope is the Leia theme. Now that's a theme that never really like
yeah.
resonated with me. Like it was always in the background. I never really thought much of it. But I'll tell you what, once Carrie Fisher passed away, like that song like hits me every time now. And they've used it so many other times in different other things, and it's just like even in like the Obi-Wan Kenobi finale, like when I started hearing that, I started getting the feels. I was like, "Oh
Mm.
man." It's
That
just one of those
Yeah, I
things
agree
where
with you. That was like that with the
it
Force Awakens.
transforms. Yup.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they use yeah, when they use it with the Force Awakens with her, because we weren't sure how Carrie Fisher was going to be in that movie. I'll be honest with you, but when she walked out and Han, I think because he saw her for the first time in how many years, and it's like, wow, they
Yep.
really got that Leia theme going on. They got that love soundtrack going on. It's like, okay, this works. This still holds up. Yeah,
Yeah, and then going over to The Empire Strikes Back. One thing of adventure that I really like, and they also brought it back into the opening sequence and also the Obi-Wan finale, and that is the asteroid chase sequence. I think it was
yep.
also featured in Solo, and it's
Mm.
just that very kinetic, like very fast, just very graceful, but also just like, oh, we're under pressure kind of feeling to that song that really lends itself to the peril and what is happening on screen, which is it heightens the mood like everything else. I really enjoy that
Yeah.
track.
No, that's one of my favorite ones, and if thank God you said it because it was going to be mine, but I'd go with a different one for me, I guess too. I'd go with the Hoth battle, the battle in the snow. I think that's what the title is called, the battle in the snow. Just how they're at the speeders, and they're going up against the AT-AT walkers. I love that whole scene. I mean, I love that whole entire movie, but that particular music, just to show the intensity of how dominant the Empire is, and how the Rebel Alliance really don't have a chance. Like they get wiped out pretty much, and that score really intensifies that particular scene and how both sides are who they are.
Oh yeah, both of those songs are excellent tracks. Like that's why the original trilogy, we all talk so highly of it and everything. It's just the music hits so well. Like there's not a track in the original trilogy that is bad in my opinion, other than what we'll get to in Return of the Jedi after this. But I I think for me, like my iconic scores, like would have to be, like you said, Chris, like you have the asteroid theme, that's iconic, that's really great. The Hoth theme, that was like my original choice. But I would say another choice for me has to be like just the subtle music that's in the background of Luke and Yoda talking on Dagobah, just because like, that's like setting up like Luke's journey, like becoming a Jedi and all that. And I think without a lot of these pieces of music, as you mentioned, like about the Yavin celebration, like if you take off the music in the background, if even the Luke and Yoda stuff, like it's subtle music, but if it's cut, those scenes would still come off really weird. So like, I just feel like that's an integral part of like Luke's journey, and just the teachings with Yoda and of course Obi-Wan, like, and yeah, that's what makes that one of the top 3 scores I would say for me from Empire Strikes Back.
All right, we'd be very much remiss if we didn't mention the Imperial March. I mean, that might be one next to
sure.
the original
Yeah,
crawl.
That's true.
Well,
I mean,
you're
you
right.
don't even. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm about to say, Chris, you're right, and I think we were probably going to all think that at one point, because they use it, I believe, in Return of the Jedi at one point as well. But yeah, the Imperial March. I mean, you're right. People use it at their weddings. You know what I'm saying? Like people use it at graduations.
Baseball games, everything.
Baseball games. People
Football
probably use it
games,
at
whatever.
freaking funerals. Okay, I haven't seen it done at a funeral yet, but I can see it being done at a funeral.
Oh my god.
But yeah, no, the Imperial March is fire. I mean, it's dope. I know one of my buddies in high school used to crank that damn thing anytime he's leaving school. He's like, "Oh, time to go home."
Yep.
Put on the Imperial March.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, "All right, it's sick." So,
Oh yeah, I have my ringtone now is the Galactic Empire, which is like the metal rendition version of the Imperial March, and people hear that go off and they kind of recognize. They're like, it's kind of funny when it
Yeah.
goes on because people are like, they know what it is, but it's like a metal version of it.
They're
So I was
like,
like,
huh?
huh, I know that from
Right.
somewhere.
And
So yeah,
what's nice is the Imperial March is known by most people in the world.
yeah,
Like that's what's nice about it. You don't have to be a crazy Star Wars fan. If you just got to know some Star Wars, you hear that, you're gonna like, wait, because people get it messed up. Think, is that Vader's music? I'm like, no.
Oh yeah, well,
that's the Empire.
Milton, back in like the New England for all our NFL fans here, back in the New England Patriots heydays, if you would watch like the Patriots pregame when they would come out of the tunnel, of course, because the Patriots being like the dynasty that they were for 20 years, they would play the Imperial March when the Patriots would come out of their tunnel in their stadium and stuff. So like, stuff like that, it's just cool how it's integrated across all things, just like the original opening score. The Imperial March is right there as,
Exactly.
they just cross all boundaries.
Right.
Ben, I'm gonna have you start off on Return of the Jedi. What is a memorable track for you that hits still to this day?
Well, I would say, okay, I have one excellent and iconic one, and one absolutely atrocious song in that movie.
Please start with the atrocious one, because I gotta hear this first.
Yeah.
So we've all seen like I guess you would say latest editions of the original trilogies on Disney Plus. Given they're from George Lucas and everything, hey, George has his flaws too. And for me, approving the absolutely awful sequence, which is one of the worst sequences in all of Star Wars, in my opinion, is the whole Jabba's extended song, like where it's like hootie day down, like that crap. That is that is beyond atrocious and awful. Like every time I see that movie, it just totally takes me out of that sequence, because in Return of the Jedi, you can tell where George edited in that sequence, because it goes from like quiet to that, back to quiet to like Leia sneaking in. And also just gives me like PTSD back to the old Battlefront days from the original Battlefront. That would just play on loop when you're on any Tatooine mission. Like it would just play for the full 20 minutes on the mission, and it's just like it made me absolutely like hate that song. So like that by far is the worst piece of music in all of Star Wars.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny about that? I actually kind of like that scene. I ain't gonna lie.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man, that is
The reason-
You know why? You know. Listen, this is why I fell in love with it. Honestly, it's because the tapes. I still have them on tape.
Yep.
The special edition. So I just love the again behind the scenes when he talked about why he added certain scenes, why he did it back in '97. So I just fell in love with like, oh, like the CGI, blah blah, the special editions. So I just kind of liked it. Yes, don't get me wrong, I like the original music in that scene. It's so much better because if you listen to the audio drama, they have the original music and it's fire. But yeah, Ben, I see why you don't like it. I just like it too much. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I can't help it.
Yeah.
But it's not great. It's not great. Let's be real though.
The reason why I really like the song is it just it's more Star Wars, and I was like, I don't care about the song. I'm seeing this really cool looking like alien fuzzball guy singing his lungs out.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the girl with the snoot, like this is cool, and then you see like all the characters in the background, like you're seeing the Weequay like banging along on the drums on the wall, and you're seeing like Boba Fett like just lifting up like the chin of that Twi'lek or whoever, the Rodian, whatever it was. So I enjoyed just like the behind the scenes aspect of like, oh, look at all these new creatures, but I so much didn't care for the music.
Oh yeah. Like I'd be totally cool with a different track playing there. Like I'm fine with all the visuals. It's just I think after hearing that on repeat so many times from playing Battlefront, it's like I just cannot even stand that.
I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh,
but because anybody, hey, load up Star Wars Battlefront 1 or Battlefront 2 from the 2000s, to either Mos Eisley or the Jabba's level or the Dune Sea level.
Really?
All of them, they have that song. It literally is on replay. Like it goes through it, and then like you'll be in the middle of the mission, you'll just hear do and just starts all over, and it's like, oh man,
oh my god, that's obnoxious.
It's so bad. Like I at one point playing those old games, I would just go in when I played the Tatooine mission and just shut off the music for that mission.
Blame you.
But to get to a positive note, for me, I think the best piece of, or like the most iconic part of Return of the Jedi, other than that track, has to be the Yub Nub song at the end of the movie.
How you gonna steal mine? I was gonna say that too. Like,
given its change, well, you can give an extended commentary on it too, because it's so iconic. Because it wraps up the story perfectly. To me, say what you want about the sequels, prequels, even any of the Disney Plus stuff we got so far. To me, the ending of Return of the Jedi is like the perfect ending for a movie like Saga, etc. Like you could cap Star Wars at Return of the Jedi. Like you could just stop at the original trilogy, honestly, with that, because the ending is perfect. And you have so many people say, "Oh well, but like it's story, the galaxy continues. There's still stuff going on." Okay, whatever. This is a movie, and to me, like, that just gives you the perfect, it's cliche with like stories and stuff, but it's your perfect like happy ending to a story, like your fairy tale ending type deal. And like to me, like it just personifies like Star Wars. Like you have the Ewoks celebrating, you have all this happy stuff going on with Luke and Leia and whatnot, and then the Force Ghost, everything. Like to me, Yub Nub is like the perfect track for that movie.
Now, have you ever heard the original track? I mean, you probably have, but I don't really recall it. Like, I just remember nothing but the special edition.
No, the Yub Nub, yeah. I can hum it half the time, and like it's in the audio drama. Like Chris, if you go listen to the audio drama, they still have it in there, like how they end that particular thing. It's dope. Like it was good, and it synced up well, because I think like, did John write that one? Did he write Yum Nub or someone else? He might have wrote that, but it syncs up perfect. Like it fits for what it was for that particular ending. Obviously, with them extending the ending in Return of the Jedi, they needed new music. that's why I don't mind the ending now in the, I guess, quote unquote official canon version of it. I don't mind that music at all. But I do like Yub Nub too. It's pretty dope. You can't go wrong with either one.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
But
so you want to branch off of this one since he kind of stole yours, Milton?
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I mean he Yub Nub is, is fire. Um I always like this particular track. I think it's the whenever they're this is the forest battle where it's like bump 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 bump
Oh.
that one.
Oh yeah.
That one stood out to me because of two things. Obviously the movie and just seeing how like the walkers were going up against the Ewoks and all that stuff. But my one of my football coaches in high school used to cut our highlight tapes. And whenever he cut our highlight tapes together for our games, he put like a song before you even click. You know how like back on DVD days you have to like you put it in there, the title screen come up, you click the button and it turns like a color and it comes on. So he always had Return of the Jedi's theme, that one playing on one of our game tapes. Dun, 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 dun. You hit play and then it stops and then the game starts. I'm like, oh, that's kind of dope. Like it was cool. That always stood out to me. I'm thinking, yeah, I've always liked it. And I guess my honorable mention would be the music whenever Luke is going up against his father, Vader. When it's that chorus music, I think it's one of the first times they used chorus music in Star Wars, was when he's like, da, da. Well, he sliced his hand off at the end. Remember?
Yep.
That particular soundtrack was pretty dope. I can't even hum it because it's so different, but I've always liked the emotions behind that particular track. It just really just brought Star Wars together, especially with those particular characters and understanding like that father-son conflict. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, mine kind of goes along with yours, Milton, because it's the Emperor's theme. So
Yeah.
it's
Kind of. Yeah, yeah.
and it's just like so foreboding and just so evil. It just really like John Williams just really he completely captured these characters' personas in the music that he plays. It just enhances like the Emperor's evilness in that moment. And it's pretty cool because the next movie we'll talk about, The Phantom Menace, has an element of that song at the end of its movie,
Yep.
and it's thanks to David W. Collins that pointed it out. It's like played in major or something, like the other
Yes.
octave. So yeah, that's mine for sure. Honorable mention, it's kind of the Force theme, but introduced in a different way. And it's my favorite moment in Star Wars, I think, still to this day, is when Luke Skywalker is standing on the skiff above the
Yep.
pit of Carkoon, and it's like you hear like boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom,
Oh yeah, the drums.
and it's like the
Yeah.
freaking build up, da, 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 and it just like blasts you with the wall of sound, and you see him doing a front flip. R2D2's slamming the saber out. He grabs it in his heroic stance and just goes to town on those weakways. Like it's just like
No, it's a
the
good scene.
best. It's the
No, it's a
best.
dope scene. And what's so funny about that? Literally this morning at the gym, I was watching some behind the scenes thing about that particular scene and like this. Again, I can't help myself. Y'all know I love the behind the scenes stuff, but like. They were talking about the lightsaber and why Luke had a different saber, and they actually had these archives of interviews between Howard Kazanjian, George Lucas, who's the other producer? Kazanjian, Kirshner, not Kirshner. Who was the Marquand? Who was the director? He was Marquand.
Oh, Richard
George,
Marquand.
and all those guys. They were talking about like, well, why did Luke have a different saber? And they talked about this scene, Chris, about with the saber popping out and then the build up and all that type of stuff. And they mentioned the music. I'm thinking, yeah, that's definitely a good soundtrack and a good track individually of how they built that scene up. So I agree with that 100%.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So, let's get into the prequels. So, quick little highlight about the prequels is, man, oh man, I'll be honest, like the prequels soundtracks to me are almost up there with the quality of the original trilogy.
Without question.
What John Williams has done with these three films has added so much to the overall
Exactly.
feel of Star Wars beyond anybody that could have ever put effort the amount that he put in. And I'll throw this one to you first, Milton. You can start off Phantom
Well,
Menace.
Yeah, I'll say this. When it comes to the music of the prequels, this is the reason why I think I fell in love with audiobooks. Is because with the mix of the original trilogy and then the enhancement of the prequels and how they put these tracks in these audiobooks, it's like, damn, like I'm listening to movies every time I'm listening to a book. This obviously Ben Burtt's sound effects, John Williams' music, and then the different writers coming, like it's just amazing. And these prequel films enhance the audiobook experience. I don't care what anyone tells me. Without these particular three films, or I guess soundtracks, the books themselves they'd still be good, but when it comes to the audio versions, they wouldn't be great because most audio books they just monotone read them to you. There's no emotion behind it. There's no feel. There's no oxygen, as I mentioned earlier about the music. Yeah, you get it with these prequel films for sure, especially with these soundtracks. When it obviously I'm not going to say the one that we all really like because that's just we all can agree on it. Let that be our honorable mention at the end. Okay. One besides the one that we all can agree upon. I'm looking at him right now. I would say the ending at Qui-Gon's funeral. Spoiler alert. Um, like that music is so good, and I think how they touch on that not imperial, but like that emperor theme a little bit with some of the Force and the Jedi theme, and it's like, yeah, some shit's about to go down in the next two films. It set it up perfectly. So I loved it. I think it's called High Council Meeting and Qui-Gon's, Noble End or
Qui-Gon's
something.
Noble
Or,
End.
or, no,
Yeah.
or Qui-Gon's funeral. Noble ends before that.
Oh yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you there, Milton. That funeral music for Qui-Gon is so good. Like, it sets the tone of the feeling, everything. Like, it has the good emotions, as the emotions you need for the scene, like for Obi-Wan and the Emperor and just everybody around that that scene's happening. And like for me, though, when it comes to the Phantom Menace, like of course, we'll get to the Duel of Fates, but I think the other like really good underrated soundtrack from it is what we got from I believe it was in the original trailer, the droid theme from when the droids are on the plains of Naboo, when all the droids are coming out, the dun 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 dun, like that sound or that soundtrack is so good. Like I guess it would be like the Invasion soundtrack, but that whole
took mine.
Yeah, it's called Droid Invasion.
Yep.
Oh, okay, well there we go. Yeah, so like that soundtrack to me was so good and like so iconic because I think, like I said, I think it was in the original trailer. If I mean, I could be mistaken, but I feel like it was, or at least it was used in the marketing back then. And that's always been a soundtrack that's really stuck with me, just because it just, when you hear that, you think of the Phantom Menace, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Right.
what's really cool about it, because I'm like kind of listening to some of these tracks as we talk about them, is it feels like it's a march. I mean, obviously it's a march, but it feels like the way the drums are, like you could imagine like a rows and rows of droids like stepping in beat, like you could feel like the machine of it all, just like stomping through the planes.
Well, you could just picture real world like soldiers marching to that, like in real life though too. Like that's how applicable that piece of music is.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. And
what's yours, Chris? I want to hear it.
well, he kind of took mine, so I'm gonna have to go with Anakin defeats Sebulba, basically the pod racing track, because it is so like dynamic and fast paced and suspenseful, and just the cymbal crashes and everything else that is just awesome. And what I will say overall, like you mentioned specifically about the audiobooks and the audio dramas there, Milton, I relate to the prequel music in video games more than anything else, because it's such a blast playing games like my longtime favorite, The Old Republic MMO, where you'll just be like fighting enemies and all of a sudden like Anakin defeats the Bulba track comes on, or different things like the March of the Droids comes on, and it brings me back, and it like ties everything together. Even though this story I'm playing is like thousands of years in the past, it still manages to like hit home that this is Star Wars. Like you think of the prequel music line instantly. Yes, this is on par with all the other tracks from the original trilogy. Exactly. It's just all the same. So that's mine there.
Oh, for sure. That's a good track. And obviously, I think we all can agree on Duel of the Fates. I think Duel of the Fates changed the game of Star Wars music. Hell, they did a music video on it. You
Yeah.
guys remember that? They,
Yep.
they did the music video, and that's the first. Actually, that's the first thing we heard of Darth Maul's voice. I think in
Huh.
that music video, because fear attracts the fearful, the strong, the weak, the innocent, or something like that. That Sith prayer that he does, and I'm thinking, yeah, Darth Maul's that dude. But nah, that whole video is dope. Because actually, I think I have both those tracks on my iPod. I have the regular Duel of the Fates soundtrack, but I have the dialogue version where they're talking behind the scenes in the movie clips. It is so good how they splice that together. I'm thinking, yeah, I want to go back and watch the prequels, and actually, I'm in the middle of watching them right now.
Oh yeah, like the Duel of Fates to me, out of all 9 movies and the spinoffs and everything in the shows, to me, you have the Star Wars theme, the Imperial March, and the Duel of Fates. I think those to me are your most iconic tracks out of all Star Wars. Like, because if you play Duel of Fates, everyone knows, where that's from. Generally, I would say it's right there with the Imperial March or the Star Wars theme. So, like, to me, it's great for that aspect, crossing culture, but also just for the point it was used in the movie. Because, I mean, look, the entire lightsaber fight, there was no dialogue at all. Like, it was just, I think the only dialogue is Obi-Wan going, or whatever, when he gets, like, kicked. So, like, you have that sort of stuff, and you get all the emotion, all the communication you need, and it's just strictly from the music. So to me, like, Duel of Fates is easily top 3 Star Wars music all time, and just overall, like, it's some of John Williams' best work.
Yeah, without question.
We got some chiming in on the chat board. Dark Nerdy Gonzo saying, I remember actually watching MTV's TRL for all those youngins out there. That's what we used to watch before the internet. For the premiere of the Duel of Fates music video. Never forget they replayed it like 3 times.
Exactly. Dark Nerdy Gonzo knows, okay, because he's probably about my age, because I'm 34.
Yeah.
And that I would have been 10 or 11 when that movie came out. And yeah, MTV, they premiered it, and I was like, yeah, this is tight. Like, yeah, like it was so good, dude, so good.
That had to have been unheard of. That had to be a first, like, just to put a movie's soundtrack on a popular, pop song network. Like, what the hell's going on?
So how they did it, like, because they saw the videos on YouTube. So how they cut it was they cut it with footage of the movie and with behind the scenes of John Williams and everyone else working on the film. Like, that's how good it is. Y'all need to go watch that. Just type in Duel of the Fates music video. Dark Nerdy Gonz already knows. He's seen it probably 200 times like I have. It's a good video because they splice in the behind the scenes stuff with clips of the film. Because it starts out, I think, with Darth Maul talking, I think, or something like that. Or it might have been Qui-Gon. I can't remember. But, yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, so we're going to go over to Attack of the Clones. There's a couple big tracks off here. I'm going to go with Zam the Assassin. That's basically the speeder chase through Coruscant. It has the same kind of feel for me as the pod race. So, I mean, I have a lot of themes going on here. I like the chase scenes where it really feels like, in this one, there's lots of percussion going on. Very cool percussion. I'm not quite sure what it is. Some, like, tribal-esque, like, percussion going on in the beginning. Very rapid-like, and then you have Zam Wesell being chased by Anakin and Obi-Wan, and they're going through different areas of Coruscant, and again, it just amplifies the scene, and that's one of my favorite scenes from the movie, of course. So
right,
there you go.
Yeah, for me, it's the love theme. It's the Across the Stars theme. Whenever they are about to get executed, spoilers, about to get executed in front of the Geonosians, whenever they can profess their love for everyone, I love that scene. It's such a good track, dude. And I think they use that same track in Lost Stars, I think, at one point, a couple times, because they talk about those 2 characters being star-crossed lovers. So, yeah, I love that particular theme. It still holds up.
Oh, yeah, those themes are really good. And I'm looking at the track list right now for the movie. And I would say for me, honestly, just looking into it, I'd say to me, the Tusken theme was really good because it set the transition of Anakin, moving down the dark path of becoming Darth Vader. Like to me, it had that like similar like percussion type vibes as like the Zam Wessel theme. Had some drums and stuff in there. Like it was a to me it was a really good theme. It was subtle and it just set the tone, like the build up of like Anakin, like the theme starts out like more quiet because Anakin's with his mom and like she's dying and blah blah blah, and then it just transitions more and more and more to like full blown like more of a dark theme because he's committing a dark act by slaughtering the Tuskens. So like I thought that was one of the better themes from that movie.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, the homestead, which is I think it's connected with that particular theme. Whenever he's talking to Padme and on the Tatooine farm, when he's raging out about just lashing out about Obi-Wan and not saving his mom, and that build up, like now, and she's like, "What's wrong, Anakin?" And he's like, he's not even talking to her. He's just talking to like space, and like how that just builds up, and I'm like, yeah, and then it transitions into a dun, 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 like the Vader theme. I'm like, yeah, that's tight. Like it was good usage, man. Like, yeah. Again, music is why the Star Wars is so great. But yeah, and I want to start the next one off. I'm sorry, I'm hijacking it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith. But it's by far my favorite album of all time when it comes to Star Wars music. Revenge of the Sith, from 1 to 15, is by far my favorite track listing. I think I have like 6 different tracks that I love on this. If I had to pick, I'm gonna pick 2. Battle Heroes and Anakin's Dark Deeds. Those are by far my favorite ones. Like the Dark Deed one's actually probably going to be number 1 for me because that's the scene whenever he's on Mustafar and he just kills the Separatists and he's looking out to that sky and he's crying with that single tear and he knows he messed up. Well, not messed up. He knows he crossed the line. He knows he's now immersed as Darth Vader. He's getting there, and you see the regret, remorse, but he's not going to take it back. He's like, I got to do this for my girl. I got to do this to save my wife because he's so scared. He's so fearful. That build up is so good, and that's whenever Palpatine does the Empire will transition into, or the Republic will transition to our Empire. Dude, I get goosebumps talking about it. That's how good it is. Like that whole scene is dope. So I love that track.
Oh yeah, I mean it says so much for the moment,
It does.
It's
like
just...
it tells so many like stories, and it's only like a 5-minute track, and it covers so much in that movie, and it's like, damn, how powerful that track is.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the opening track. I think we're all gonna have different ones for this one easily. There, like you said, Milton, there's so much in these 15 tracks hit heavy and hit hard because there's so much emotion in this movie more than like any other Star Wars movie. This is emotion, man. And what I will say is the way the movie starts, very quiet. You just hear a big drum, boom,
boom, boom,
boom, boom, boom, and it pans down, and it's just chaos above Coruscant.
That is so tight.
And
it's so good.
And it's so good because it's the Force theme, but it's built up like slower, but like more impactful, and it totally encapsulates the relationship of Obi-Wan and Anakin. It's this very heroic opening, like, we got this, guys. We got the 2 best Jedis of the galaxy going against General Grievous. The Separatists got no chance right now. You got the Jedi starfighters expertly piloting through all the droid tri-fighters and the ARC 170s backing them up. It is so freaking glorious, and you just hear that song, and you just feel like triumphant, It's
Bro,
just like,
it's like let me get in the cockpit of a ship. Let me go out there with them. Like it's so, and that drum. I wish they put the drums in the actual soundtrack because they're not in it. But the movie does. Imagine having surround sound and getting that, boom, boom. And just how yeah, it's tight.
Oh yeah, I agree with you guys completely. Like that soundtrack is so good. Well, or as you mentioned, even to start this whole segment, Milton. all the soundtracks for this movie are great, in my opinion. They're all really good. Like, you could play any of them, and they're all really, really good. And, like, the opening soundtrack, to me, is such a good one because, like you said, Chris, it sets the whole tone for Anakin and Obi-Wan. Like, we got our heroes. They're going on their mission, etc. Like, and, like, to me, it was exciting just because, like, back then, anyways, before the new Clone Wars came out, like, the end of the Tartakovsky Clone Wars was literally them going to rescue Palpatine from Grievous. Like, they were getting in their ships, leaving. So, like, it literally tied directly into that movie. So, like, that was even more impactful for me just because I love that series. And then, to also with that whole sequence, I believe that's one of our longest held shots. Like, the shot tracks with their ships and everything. Like, it doesn't cut. And, like, that's one of the longer held just steady shots that we get in all of Star Wars. So, like, it works really well for the sequence. And yeah, it's just one of the best overall tracks for the movie. Now,
Yeah.
I would say for me, though, you have that track. I think, that was my original choice, actually. So, that one was taken. And then I would say, you have obviously the Palpatine's teachings, like, the whole Darth Plagueis stuff. That's
So
really good. But to me, like, when I think of Revenge of the Sith, I think of the Anakin versus Obi-Wan theme.
Yeah.
Just because, like, them fighting on Mustafar, you have all those, like, horns and everything, playing, and just all the visuals that go along with it are so good. And if you look it up, there have been plenty of, like, live appearances of John Williams, like, playing that in a concert style. And it's cool because, you can find the videos on YouTube, like he's played that, like, theme in concert style, and they'll have the actual fight playing on a big screen in the background. So you see the fight, and then you actually, like, the people in person are hearing the Anakin versus Obi-Wan theme playing, like, with the fight in the background. So, like, seeing different clips like that, and, like, really, to me, like, that's, like, the tone of the Revenge of the Sith movie, is that buildup of that big fight. I mean, we got it from the original poster of the movie, Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting. So it's like you have their theme, like, really personifies that movie.
Right. Yeah. And I've never gone to, what was that, Star Wars in concert they were doing? Yeah. I've always seen, like, clips of it, dude. I would love to go to that someday. I mean, I don't see John Williams doing that anytime soon or in the future. I mean, he is 90-some years old. But if they had, like, Michael Giacchino or Kevin Kiner or someone that we would trust with the music, I think I would go to something like that just to see them put the clips up there and have the live orchestra playing. Man, I'm getting goosebumps again. I can't help myself, dude. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it now because that's how dope it would be.
Yeah, I seen the Return of the Jedi version in a couple of years ago at New York Comic Con during that same weekend. That was one of the events they had, and it was so crazy, man. Like, just the feeling of being with that full wave of music hitting you live in front of a giant screen watching the movie. You gotta catch it. I was seeing a lot of advertisements, at least in my area. They were always, like, in Jersey, just, like, putting on, oh, they're playing A New Hope this week, or they're playing this. But yeah, I would like to see the damn prequels, man. Like, I've seen enough of the original trilogy. I want to see somebody play the prequel tracks. Come on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we still have, I know where I live here, we have a drive-in theater, and they play all the new stuff, but I'm hoping that they would play, like, Star Wars. I mean, being outside and you can just crank the sound up, that'd be dope. Like, oh man, that'd be sick.
Heck yeah. So do you guys want to move on to the next couple movies?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Do you want to just do, like, honorable mentions with the spin-offs, or do you want to go right for the sequels?
We can.
Let's go. I think let's go sequels, and then let's pick our favorite spin-off movie track.
All right, well, I'll be honest with you. When it comes to the sequels, there's not a lot of variety. And I think it was because John Williams is, no offense to him, but he's getting up in age. And, like, there's 3 tracks out of the entire trilogy that I can think off the top of my head. And that's the Kylo Ren theme, that's the Rey theme, and that's the Resistance theme.
Okay.
That's all I know, right? Like,
is that
the
the entire trilogy for you?
Yeah.
Which no, and I'm bringing this up for a reason because I think I've always said the weakest part besides the sequel trilogy being The Last Jedi has been the music in the sequel trilogy. And I don't want to blame John Williams per se because he's very talented. Hell, I can't do what he does.
Yeah.
But I felt like he got a weird mandate from Disney saying, "Hey,
Oh.
let's do it differently." Like, no, man, like you just made the prequels, bro. Like
No,
you should be giving us that type of music, like in the original or the sequel trilogy.
You gotta let the past die. Remember?
No, freak that. All right, Ryan Johnson, nah, bro. Nah, you know what? It's just like, hey, you know what Bill Belichick would say. Do your damn job.
Yep.
Keep it simple. All right, keeping it simple wins games too. All right.
Yeah, like realistically, just looking at the Force Awakens track, I have it up right now. Like to me, I mean, we'll get into Last Jedi after this, but like to me, for Force Awakens, I would say one of the better tracks would have to be like the opening track, like when Kylo and them are attacking that village. Yeah, that whole sequence.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a pretty good sequence. It's not anywhere close to any of the tracks we've talked about so far.
Oh, without question.
It's a good serviceable. Gosh, serviceable. It's bad using that word, but it's a good serviceable track for Star Wars. Like it sets the tone. It kind of sets the whole, hey, here's your new villain type deal, and it did its job in that regard.
I agree with that. I think the Attack on Jakku Village, because I do have that soundtrack on my iPod, the whole thing. I'll be honest with you, and I've listened to it.
Yep.
I do like that particular track because of especially when they get to like Kylo Ren part of whenever they get to the planet. Then I would probably have to say the abduction whenever they take her off of the planet and Finn is doing his traditional Rey. He screams at her. I like how that leads up to it, and then I kind of like. Well, no, I like the Jedi steps at the end whenever she's walking up
I like
to Luke.
that one. Mm-hmm.
That's probably my favorite one because that build up, and then it's a Luke because like, oh, that's my guy. Spoiler.
Yeah.
Like I love how it led up to him. So Jedi steps is probably my favorite track when it comes to the Force Awakens.
Yeah, I find myself humming, like, even though I said at the beginning, like, there weren't a lot of, like, tracks, like, variety-wise, as we could expect from the prequels, I will say that Rise of the Resistance theme, it just kind of...
Yeah, that thing?
Yeah, when they're flying over Takodana in the X-Wing, it's like...
Yeah.
That I get that in my head a lot, and I'll just start humming it and stuff, and I'm, like, catching myself, like... Yeah, it's a catchy song, and it's very uplifting, and it's very like, yeah, the good guys are coming in to save the day. We got Poe Dameron and the rest of the Resistance going to save the day. So I enjoyed that one.
No, I will say the Force Awakens soundtrack is probably the best one out of the sequel trilogy, without question. I think because there was a lot more time put in it. I think there was a little bit more thought process. And I know John Williams was hyped about doing Rey's theme. He kept talking about that. I remember, like, he's like, I had to write for this girl. Like, I loved how they wrote her in the script. He's like, I had to put a theme together for her. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like, I guess I would say transitioning to Last Jedi. Like for me, I think so. I didn't bring up Rey's theme for Force Awakens just because we didn't really get a lot of it. And to me, her theme, I think, was used the best for The Last Jedi. Like, to me, the Rey's theme it's not my top 5, but it's in my top 10 of favorite Star Wars music. I think, to me, I think it's the best music of the entire sequel trilogy, just because, it's a touch of the Force theme. It's iconic. Like, it's not iconic. I would say it's really... It's the most quote unquote, I'd say, Star Wars to me out of the sequel trilogy. Like, just
which one you said, Force Awakens?
The Rey theme.
Oh, the Rey theme. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would say the Rey theme is the most quote unquote like Star Wars feel to me out of all of the sequel trilogy soundtracks. Like, and I think her theme was best utilized in The Last Jedi, like for her sequences there on the island and stuff. Like, to me, that was the best use of her theme. And I feel like John Williams talks so much about it because, like, even in the back of his head, he knew it was probably like the best track he'd made for the sequels. So to me, yeah, that soundtrack, I would say, is probably the best, and it's the best used in The Last Jedi.
Um, yeah, I'm having a hard time just trying to find out one to pick here. I have
For The Last
Spotify
Jedi,
open.
you know
Yeah.
that again. Look, man, I do it every time. You know, I do not like this movie, and that's part of why too, because the music's not great. You know, it does. The
I
only thing I like about that movie, when it comes to the music, is whenever Kylo Ren and Luke go at it, and it's the spark. Whenever like he
Oh, that's
sees
a good
Leia,
one.
so he builds up, he walks in, sees Leia, and they play like that Leia theme and Luke theme a
yeah.
little bit, and then he winks at 3PO, and then it's boom 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 boom, and then they have that wide shot of that burning like triangle of the door, dun 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 dun, dun, and then the gorilla walkers stop, and that's when he's like fire upon that man or whatever. That build up was dope. I will say that was tight. And then when it comes to the Last Jedi track, it's actually called the Last Jedi. Whenever Rey, or excuse me, Kylo goes to slice through Luke, it's like,
Uh-huh.
and they build up for that. I like how that tie. It's really good how that does it. Now there is a scene or a clip on YouTube where it's titled "How Music Changes a Particular Scene."
Mm-hmm.
They take Anakin's Dark Deeds theme whenever Kylo it puts the saber through Luke. Dude, that scene plays so much better with Anakin's music. I kid you not. I'll send it to you guys in the chat. It's that dope.
Huh.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
but
um,
I say the Spark and the Last Jedi are the best tracks in that movie.
Honorable mention. I can't believe there's a track titled "Fun with Finn and Rose."
Jeez, are you kidding me? Stop.
I'm looking at the track list right here. It literally says "Fun with Finn and Rose."
Yeah, that's why this movie wasn't good.
I'm listening to the Chrome Dome track, and I'm actually really digging it towards the later part of the song. It really feels like slow and heavy, like two people are dueling. So, I mean, that's the thing with
Mhm.
John Williams, is he's able to put the feeling of what's happening on screen into the actual music and make it feel like it's compatible and it works along with what's happening. So I'm imagining like impacts happening between uh, the characters of Finn and not General Grievous, but Chrome Dome, Phasma,
Yeah,
fighting there
Phasma.
on falling apart supremacy. So there you go. I pulled one out for you at the end. Going to the last movie of the whole saga. What are your guys' picks for Rise of Skywalker? Do you have anything that comes to mind?
Oh God, yeah, I really don't. I'll be honest with you. Gosh, I wish I can say that I did. I'll be just flat out real with you. I have to look at the tracking list right now. I'm looking at it right now. Give me a second,
Yeah,
because I
let me
really I really
listen.
have no idea if anything stands out to me. I mean maybe maybe the final saber duel whenever Rey and Kylo are going at it, but that's not great either. I mean, I
I feel
like the
like there's a
scene.
lot of dead music at that point when they're on the Death
Yeah.
Star.
Well, yeah, when they're on the indoor Death Star, and they're surrounded by the ocean. There is some music that plays, but it's not great. Like they don't change it, and this is why I get so upset about the sequel sometimes, because it's like you had these epic stories you could have told, and you
Mm-hmm.
could have music that should have gone with it. And this is why, as fans, I said it. I think I said it 2 weeks ago. It's crazy how we as fans can go on YouTube now, splice up some stuff, and make it 10 times better. Because I know for that particular scene, they put the Battle Hero song on that same scene, and it plays so much better, so much better. So I really can't give you an actual like,
Yeah, nothing
yeah, nothing.
nothing really
I
Maybe
would
maybe
comes
say
together.
maybe the journey to Exegol whenever he's talking to Palpatine.
I'm listening
Maybe,
to that right now, and that's the one thing I was like, oh, there's some cool elements in there. But again,
maybe.
oh
a lot of it is just all ripped from Empire Strikes Back and some other movies. I
Yeah,
don't know if there's a lot of original, like purely original tracks in this one. They all seem like they're kind of a melding of what's come before, which makes sense. I mean, this is the last film of the saga, so you're you're paying respects to everything that came before to kind of wrap it up. But
But
I
that's
would have
but
liked like at least one pure original. Maybe I'm explaining it wrong. Maybe there is something, and I'm not seeing everything right now.
I
But
mean,
nothing
yeah,
stood out to
I
me.
mean, oh yeah, none of the just even looking at the track list here, like I can't even like tell other than like some of the obvious points, like where some of these tracks take place, just because it's like I don't, they're not great. And to me, I would say the best use of music, I don't even know what track it was used in the scene even, was when you have Poe saying like basically saying like all hope is lost, blah 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 blah
Yep.
blah, and like the music is like dying, and then as soon as
Uh huh.
Lando shoots in, it's
Yep.
like whatever music plays in that sequence, like that whole scene is still, in my opinion, one of the best scenes in the sequel trilogy, just because it's like like Hope coming back to the galaxy or whatever, and just like cliche stuff, like heroic stuff. Like I think that's one of the best sequences in the sequel trilogy, and the music in that was probably a factor in the background, like for setting the mood and tone of that scene. Like it feels like all hope is lost, and then boom, like Lando and everybody comes in to save the day. So like I thought that was an excellent use of music for an excellent use of music for music that wasn't very iconic.
Yeah, well, what
yeah,
I will
exactly.
say about that track specifically is they actually play the main theme of Star Wars in context of the
Yep.
actual movie, and that's the
I was
first time
about to
they
say.
ever did that. So for me, I would say, hey, that was something that stood out to me on the first or second viewing was, wow, they've never done that before.
No, I agree. No, I agree. And like I said, but this is where you mentioned, I think it might have been you, Chris, or maybe you, Ben, but something about this is the last film. You want to pay homage to the entire trilogy or the entire saga. It's like you could have used multiple tracks from all the movies to at least try to meld them in better. And this is why, again, if this movie was titled Duel of the Fates, I guarantee we have a different soundtrack because they definitely would have used more prequel film music for sure, and John would have came up with some new things just to wrap up the entire saga.
Yeah,
But it is what it is, man.
so that's all the tracks that we enjoyed from the Star Wars saga. So far, if there's any like honorable mentions from anything else,
Mm.
um, we can
I,
say there's. I mean,
Yeah,
basically, it's just two spin-off movies.
yeah,
yeah.
I would say like honorable mentions. We have a few. So like we can mention some stuff from the spin-off movies, but I think we can't not talk Star Wars music without mentioning some of the stuff from the shows. So like for me, I would say, in terms of noticeability and especially nowadays with how popular it is, the Mandalorian theme has to be
Without question.
in there, like because if you play that do 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 anywhere, people know what that, like they know, oh, that's the Baby Yoda, that's the Baby Yoda show, like that's what people hear, and that's what they associate it with. Like if you play that music, and it's an iconic and a really good track, because it's just like the James Bond theme in terms of, it's like in the Bond movies. Whenever James Bond's in trouble, like if he's going through a sequence where something bad, or he's doing something heroic, like and the main 007 music is playing, like, oh yeah, it's time for him to like kick butt, get into action, like, and you notice that in the Mandalorian show, like, or even in the Book of Boba Fett during the two Mandalorian episodes, like you have sequences where Din's going through and that music's playing, and it's like, oh yeah, like this is our guy like doing his thing. Like, so to me, the Mandalorian theme has to be mentioned if we're talking Star Wars music.
That's a good one. No, I can't disagree at all.
One thing
Um,
that comes to go ahead.
no, go ahead, Ben, or excuse me, Chris. Go ahead.
You're probably none of you are gonna see this one coming, but one of the most memorable things that came out of Star Wars Resistance was the soundtrack and the theme. It's like
Yeah, I did
dun, dun,
not see that
dun,
one
dun,
coming.
dun, 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 and I don't know. That's again like the Resistance theme. I'll be taking a shower, and for whatever reason,
Yep.
it just comes to my mind, and I'll just be like in the shower, just like humming along to the Star Wars Resistance theme. I'm like, of all the songs of Star Wars, of all the Star Wars properties, I mean, I like the show, but I don't think I loved it that much for this thing to be stuck in my head. But damn if it isn't a catchy song.
Right. Yeah, no, I feel you.
You know, so the animation, I think it's worth noting. You know, you mentioned live action, of course, Mandalorian. It's the hottest thing in TV, and it has been for the last couple of years. But I think it's worth talking about Kevin Kiner and about what he has added to the Clone Wars, to Star Wars Rebels, to the Bad Batch. He has added so much that I want to hear more of in the mainstream of things. You know.
Oh, for sure. Before you make your point, Milton, unless I steal your track here, you're mentioning Kevin Kiner with Rebels. Like, to me, I think, of course, along with the Mandalorian track, I think one of the better tracks under the Disney era so far is the track you hear when Kanan is holding the fire back right before he dies. Like, that track is so dang good. Like, that literally, you talk about taking away music, take away that from that scene and whatever, he just dies. But like, setting, that track to me is one of the better tracks, like, because that, like, when we were all watching that when he died, it was like, man, that's an emotional moment. Like, that hits. Like, and I think that's one of the better tracks under the entire Disney era.
Absolutely. I don't disagree at all. And then before I get to mine, like, I just to piggyback off that, can we get some more love to Kevin Kiner? Like, that he's that dude when it comes to Star Wars music. He has been so good at utilizing John Williams themes and creating some new ones at the times. Because I love the Clone Wars soundtracks, like especially the Clone Wars or saber battles. The musics are so good for them, and Kevin Kiner is just doing some wonderful things when he did Clone Wars. So give him that love. My pick is Michael Giacchino, his soundtrack from Rogue One.
That's great.
I love that soundtrack. I literally downloaded that like a week after the movie came out because people were like shitting on that soundtrack at first, and I'm thinking, what? This music is good. Like, literally, I've listened through track 1 through how many it was. Now, I will say the weakest one out of it was the first set track where they do like that whole like da-da, that, you know what I'm talking about? That comes in like
the loud where it's like
yeah,
or
that's
whatever.
Stupid. Yeah, that's dumb. But everything else, like the Krennic music, the Jeddah intro's tight. Whenever Aspirations director, when he chokes him out, that's good. Whenever, even when Tarkin pops up for the first time, so good. Like, it's tight. And then obviously at the end, whenever Vader is wrecking shop, and I think it's called Jen Erso, and it's called Jen Erso, or it's called Hope, and then it's called Your Father Will Be Proud. Like, both those tracks, when line, it's so good.
Oh yeah.
Like, literally that whole, if you guys are watching this or you just want to like listen to a soundtrack, get that, because literally it's telling a story through the music. That's how good it is.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, the Rogue One soundtrack, like you said, a lot of people were shitting on it when it came out, and it's like, I think it's a really good soundtrack. Like, sure, there was the one track that's kind of a little wonky, but overall, like, I think that soundtrack's really good. And like you said, it's on a lot of the tracks from it are on my like Star Wars music playlist. And another one too, to mention, as we're mentioning more honorable mentions, I guess. One of my most favorite Star Wars tracks in general isn't from a movie, a show, an audiobook. It's from actually a game, and it has to be mentioned. The Republic Commando theme. I'm
not sure.
It's like, if you heard it, I bet you would recognize it right away, because it's like, it's actual like operatics, like singing, where it's like oh do 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 and it's literally so good. Like, the main Republic Commando theme is excellent, and like, if you if you get a chance to check that out, that I think is one of the best overall, like, most honorable mentions, I would say.
Yeah,
and underrated.
Exactly. And just to finish my point off, when it comes to Rogue One, the best well, I
Yeah.
wouldn't say the best, but a very emotional scene is whenever she's talking to her father. Jen is talking to
Yeah.
what's his name, Galen, through
Mm-hmm.
the
Galen.
holocron, and he's telling
Oh.
her about the Death Star plans and that music build up and how she's so emotional and they're both like crying. I'm thinking, dude, like every time I watch it, like I get teary eyed. I'm thinking, yo, that's such a good scene because she's breaking down, knowing that she hasn't seen her father in like what 20 years or whatever it was, and like that's the first time she saw him and she thought he was a traitor or something like that or what the hell was going on. Like it was so good. Like the music choice used was so good. So yeah, I love that soundtrack.
Yeah, one final one for me from a video game is one of my favorites, going back to 1996, the big multimedia publishing effort, Shadows of the Empire, man. Every time you put on the
Mm.
N64, you go to the title screen, dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun dun. And they even play that track in the Battlefront 2 game, like the current 2017 one, and I get hyped because it's like that track that you would think of with like Prince Zizor and Dash Rendar and like the Battle of Hoth a little bit too. So to me that stands out. There's also like a Boba Fett theme, that somebody evidently enough was playing. It was so funny. I was at Celebration this last time, and I was walking around the convention center, and I heard this music, and it was near me, but it was like I couldn't figure out where it was coming from, and I went down the escalator, and then I see like and you could see the costume in my cosplay video. There is like a Western style Boba Fett who has
Mm.
like the poncho over his shoulder like Clint Eastwood, and he was walking around with a Bluetooth speaker of like that Shadows of the Empire like Boba Fett theme, which I think oddly enough actually was a John Williams song, but they put it into Shadows of the Empire. I think of it as a Shadows of the Empire Boba Fett song. So yeah, you had this Boba Fett walking around with like a Bluetooth speaker somewhere on him, like blasting that music, and I was like, I gravitated toward that song and him like it was like my calling card. I was like, where is that coming from? Where,
Yeah.
So.
That's what's up. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So there you go. I mean, we little fun conversation on this week's episode about Room Transmission. Just taking it old school and just kind of going off of one topic, explaining. We updated you guys on the news, but there's not a whole lot going out this week. We're gonna have a lot more to talk about. Definitely towards the end of the month with a new docu-series with some conventions like Comic-Con coming around. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot more to talk about or have more trivia as the weeks go on. And yeah, we're gonna keep things rolling until Andor, which now we can say is coming out next month. So a lot to look forward to, as always, if you are a Star Wars fan. Comics, we got novels. I finished my review for Shadow of the Sith. Absolutely awesome. I was talking about it a lot last week with Matthew from Ion Canon, and I can confirm now that that book is awesome, and it's basically essential reading if you really want to know the ins and outs of the sequel trilogy. It definitely enhances it, and I can't wait to go back and watch Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker to kind of have a different context of knowing exactly what is happening behind the scenes. Um,
Mm.
so there you go. You can find out all that on my recent video of my spoiler-free review on the channel right now. Milton, what are you going to be up to this week, man?
This is going to be a quiet weekend, just chilling, hanging out, doing me. As I slowly start preparing to go on vacation mode in a couple weeks. So I'm just going to be getting stuff done around my place, hanging out with some friends, hopefully, and just chilling at the spot. So, and obviously working out like I normally do. But if you want to find me on Twitter at Milton Weber, the number 7, or on Instagram at Milton, the number 7 Weber.
There you go, Ben. Thanks for joining
Yeah, I
us
mean,
tonight.
oh yeah, as always. Yeah, I mean, I'm doing pretty much the same thing as Milton. Just working out, and that's about it. Nothing too crazy this weekend really planned. And you can find me at Real Ben Maynard on Instagram.
There you go. And as always, if you're listening, you can find me on youtube.com/Starrapter, where me, Ben, and Milton go live every Friday night around 9 o'clock Eastern. And you can listen to us if you're watching after the fact. Listen to us on any of your podcast networks. And we really want to kind of beef up the numbers on our podcast. So if you have any Star Wars friends that like to listen to podcasts, go ahead, share us to your friends and tell us, that you sent them here, and we'll try to give them a shout out. And you can always join us live in the chat like Dark Nerdy Gonzo and many others throughout the last couple weeks and months that we've been doing this podcast. And well, I could say we've been doing it over a year now as of May. I forgot to even mention that. So yeah, we've got a whole year under our belts and we have no signs of stopping. So again, thanks for everybody for listening. So that's going to do it for me, Chris, aka Starrapter, for Milton, for Ben. This was episode number 65 of the Outer Rim Transmission podcast. Until next time, end transmission. All right, that was really fun.